unfortunately I don't know who this is. There's a mix for me. So, today. Well, just want to talk about what's in my heart first, which is quite simply how difficult it can be to be a non-attached man. Discussing this with my sister, who's a social worker. She seems to have an opposite approach, and I would like to maybe discuss that a little later. And could use your input about how these two divergent worldviews fit together. I mean, I really don't even know how Buddhists do it in this country, or if there's something I'm missing because I'm in this country. You know, is there some fundamental acceptance that they received in their countries of origin? I mean, our fellow Americans are Chinese descent, Vietnamese descent, Indian descent. So, like, my practice is to remain receptive, right? And then see what's granted. I think I probably mentioned this before. See what's granted. And what's granted could be anything. I was receiving a lot of what I perceived as envy today. Why today's different than any other day, I have no idea. Oh, yes. I was hoping to get to land this position as baker, as you might have noted yesterday. Didn't happen. That's alright. I also got a phone call yesterday from an advocacy position, so that may be more attuned with my being. But it's kind of difficult, like. So when I couch people's energies, then as an adult, I want to make it clear that I'm okay, you're okay, right? And so if negative energy is put in my space, then I shun it off, right? I shun it off. Like water off a duck's back is the cliche. And then if I'm met with positive energy, then I establish a non-attached relationship with that other being. And that ends up being very beneficial, helpful and hopeful, and mutually rewarding. But when you remain receptive to people, there's a lot of people who are like childlike, right? Who press. It's like you give them an advantage, namely, hi, who are you? And then they're like, pour all their shit onto you, right? Oh, well, my life's so fucking hard, like blah blah blah, and on and on and on, and who are you and who do you think you are? And that's the essence of the spirit of the message. And of course there are those rare circumstances when you find someone who doesn't need a whole lot from you and is whole and onto themselves. And those are the relationships which last for me. Or last longer, I hope, and let's hope, than those that are born of people desiring to press their advantage. my sister's perspective, from a social work perspective, and dealing with kids, not adults, is such that she steps into a situation and like establishes like an attachment, and that, you know, a safe haven kind of a harbor. And then the child opens up into that, and then she's left to transfer that attachment onto a foster mother or foster father when the time is right. I don't think people perceive me as being fundamentally unsafe, because regardless of what type of energy they hit me with, my practice is to stay self-contained, right? So I will couch wherever it is they're at, and then I'll drop, I'll exercise self-love and say, no, that's not okay, that's not okay, that's not okay, that's not okay, that's not okay. So, what is it that you really need? So I guess I'm doing a lot of suffering because the whole part of the reason why I went through this process, you could call it therapy, you can call it an encounter with the self, you can call it whatever you want to call it. I did it. And so other people, if they're not happy to be in a relationship with me, which is the 7 or 8%, they're either aggravated and impressed in such a way that it drives them to try to undermine me. Again, this is my own perception. Or they want to build me up because they see that, here's a receptive guy, what is he about? All I know is that he's not in my face, he seems to be receptive. He's not attached to initiative or power. So then they idealize me, right? That's the felt sense, is that they elevate me. It's a pretty torturous existence to be thrown between those two extremes frequently, to either be punished or elevated, when I want neither of those things, right? Although I guess I'm not attached to not wanting them either. It's like that elevation doesn't help, All I really want is to be myself and be accepted as I am. Not to be devalued, not to be elevated. But so it seems so few people are capable of doing this. And that leaves me quite lonely. And then within a cultural context, right? I worked with emotion for years. I appreciate emotion. And I want it to be okay for you to be emotional. I want it to be okay for me to be emotional. And part of that emotionality is being receptive. And so that's threatening to people too, because of the cultural context in which we find ourselves. So what am I to do? Am I supposed to like just only hang out in music, poetry, political venues? Or am I missing something, regarding attachment? And the Buddhists allude to one healthy attachment. And I presume that was non-attachment, an attachment to non-attachment. Presumed it was an attachment to happiness. And as you may have seen in the Brian and I chat video, that happiness I still believe is born of being receptive. But when I hear myself say out loud that I wouldn't wish this non-attachment thing on anyone, then what is it that differentiates Chinese culture, from our culture? I've studied Buddhism long enough such that I'm relatively assured that I'm practicing non-attachment healthily, but my life is dukkha, despite the fact that I've dismantled attachment. So from dukkha born of delusion to dukkha born of clarity. Still dukkha. Perhaps another way of describing my personality would be that I'm a warrior of the heart, right? Despite the fact that I don't have my heart wide open all the time, because I reserve it for those who deserve it. And I open it regularly too, so I don't withhold necessarily or per se. So what to do? Does anyone have any experience with this type of non-attachment practice in the context of NorCal? Or maybe there's some people in the Far East that would be willing to comment about, or here in America, how do they find themselves struggling with non-attachment when they move from Vietnam to Cali? They're all quiet. Do you get that? There's one thing that I've seen an Asian share. It's their silence. Their humility. But I don't like to hide. And I get a sense that that silence is born in part of feeling like they wouldn't be accepted if they did show up completely. And given that I have 155 years in California, 5th generation, this is my home. And why hide while you're at home? So kind of out of frustration, like had a beer when I got home. Not because I liked the effects of alcohol, but because I needed a sedative. And I feel better now too. But I'm in a peaceful place, man. I mean, at Boulder Creek in Santa Cruz, wanting nothing more than to be myself and finding that it's not good enough. So am I attached to sincerity, perhaps? Excuse me. And if so, what is the issue with being attached to sincerity? I mean, I have no attachments per se, so if I'm just showing up, how does that offend anybody? I usually get offended when someone's attached to me, attached to something that they presume that I can offer. That's what pisses me off. And they're pressing on me to give them what they feel that I can offer, which is often delusionary, right? It's a projection. Gotta keep this under 10 minutes, so I'm gonna close here pretty soon. I guess I'm disappointed that I didn't get this baker's job too. For God's sakes, here. Moved from a place of, adolescent narcissism, like where we all think that the world is our oyster. Freed myself from that. Humbled myself before all beings. Continue to do so now. And yet, no happiness. Just people pressing on me as if they were children not knowing what they want and believing that I had something that I don't have. Or that I would be willing to make further sacrifices for their well-being. But I've already made the fucking great sacrifice. I got nothing left to give. But hope is present, ever present, right? In the form of these advocacy and positions of representation. But to read the words of the Tao Te Ching, to hear the truth in them, to believe them, and then to just suffer in their living practice. That's all I got. Hope you're well, and I hope that you can be yourself and be accepted as such. And don't get me wrong, I had a nice connection with the guitars. Like, opportunity is knocking.